So, if you want to read diversity in novels, then you should not read my novel because I am a white straight man. There is no aspect of my identity that I can use to market my book or explain why you might want to read it. And yeah, that kind of sucks for me. But I also enjoy an incredible amount of societal privilege because of who I am. But I have a question about this because there is a interesting dynamic that's happening in the crossroads between traditional corporate publishing and self-publishing, which I just kind of want to touch on, ask questions about, get a little discussion going. And the question is self-publishing the same industry as traditional corporate publishing? If not, then and they're separate, completely separate industries, then what responsibility does self-publishing have to correcting the wrongs of traditional corporate publishing? Traditional publishing, the corporations have historically, very clearly, ignored marginalized voices. Right? They have very much have a very preference of publishing of guys pretty much who look like me throughout their history because of mostly economics, but maybe good old racism and bigotry is in there in the mix too. Who knows? The bigger point is that that is a very well established fact that traditionally in the traditional publishing market, guys who look like me have an unfair advantage over pretty much everybody else. And one of the reasons why I'm a huge champion of self-publishing, and I have said this many, many, many times so far, is self-publishing is a revolution in the literary arts. It is nothing short of revolutionary because there is no corporate agenda that is filtering out voices, right? Everyone has an equal chance in self-publishing. Everyone can publish their books. Everyone can get out here and market their books. That levels the playing field, theoretically. And the discussion I see often is that we need to read diversity because traditional publishing has historically ignored diverse voices. But is self publishing the same industry as traditional publishing? Now, you can say that the end result, the books themselves, are pretty much the same, right? You publish a book, self publish a book, the corporations publish a book, it's still published books that people read. Therefore, the industry is the same, even if the mechanisms by which those books are made is different. And if that's the case, if people believe that self publishing and corporate publishing are the same industry, then of course it makes a lot of sense to promote diversity as much as possible by skipping over guys like me to read more historically marginalized books and voices. However, if you believe that corporate publishing and self publishing are completely different industries, then the question is the to what extent should we try to correct the wrongs of corporate publishing in the different industry, right? So if we're all self-published and we're all in an equal playing field, in theory, obviously societally we're not all in an equal playing field, but as much as possible, I suppose you could say, every self-published author is pretty much the same in that they self-publish their book and they're responsible for getting that book out to their audiences. And if that's the case, and people say you should read uh, diversity in self-published books and that you should skip over guys like me in favor of those more diverse voices, um, would that qualify as discrimination? In other words, is the discrimination against guys who have historically won because I'm a white guy? Is the discrimination against people like me in the self-publishing industry? If self-publishing is a different industry, would that count as the same kind of discrimination that the traditional corporate publishers have enacted against those diverse voices? I find this question fascinating, not just because, of who I am, but I find it fascinating because there are so many layers to this, and so many experiential layers, and historical layers, and cultural layers, and economic layers. It is a deep issue, I think, not just in the moment, but also like 100 years from now. Let's say self-publishing continues to exist 100 years from now, and the playing field has been relatively equal in terms of self-publishing in that side. But then you see um, a different sort of demographics emerge from that self-published industry as opposed to the traditional corporate entities that probably still err on the side of, this guy. Because again, there is no aspect of my identity that I can use to promote my books without immediately gaining the wrong audience, right? I'm not promoting any aspect of who I am in my book publishing, because if I did, I would immediately attract the exact opposite kind of people that I would actually want to read my book. And that is a disadvantage, because I'm not going to be picked for, hey, you should read diversely. Read books written by women, not my books. Read books written by people of color, not my books. Anything that we would feel good promoting, especially in relation to the historical wrongs created by the traditional corporate publishing. I am fully excluded from every one of those. And I'm not complaining. I'm not saying, oh, this shouldn't happen, or oh, blah, blah, blah. I just find it interesting. I'm a hobbyist. I got nothing at stake here. But for me, in my view of the world, I see self-publishing as a completely different industry than traditional corporate publishing, because there are no corporate layers, there are no economics, there are no market trends, there are no book agents and querying and whatever, all of that nonsense that the traditional publishers have to deal with that filters out a lot of diverse voices. Self-publishing has none of that. It's flat. And I absolutely believe in reading diversity as much as possible, to read as diverse authors and books as possible. I believe that's not just morally or ethically important, but also very important for the skill of reading and writing, right? The more diverse of a voice you can get in you, the better you're going to be as a reader and as a writer. But if someone were to come out and say, you should read more books written by guys who look like me, and here's a list of authors who look like me, I don't want to be on that list, and I don't want that to be the reason why people pick up my book. I want my book to just be read because it's a good book and people like it. Anyway, what do you guys think? Am I reading too much into this? Is traditional publishing and self-publishing the same industry, and that it is our moral imperative to correct the wrongs through this new mechanism of self-publishing? Or do you think that traditional publishing and self-publishing are different industries, and therefore self-publishing doesn't have necessarily what's the word I'm looking for? The responsibility to correct the wrongs of a different industry, right? Let me know what you think.